Most people don't realize this, but men carry their emotions in silence far more than the world understands. They've been taught that strength means stillness, that manhood means holding it all in, that crying or expressing feelings is a weakness instead of a human need. So when it comes to emotional attachment, it doesn't start with words, it starts with safety. And a man will never emotionally attach to a woman unless he feels deeply, consistently that he is emotionally safe with her. That kind of safety doesn't come from soft voices or sweet gestures alone. It comes from presence, from being able to open up about what's going on in his mind without feeling judged, corrected, or shamed. It comes from knowing that if he says, "I'm scared, I'm unsure, or I'm hurting," he won't be looked at as less of a man, but instead as a whole human being. And that kind of space, that's rare, that's sacred. A man may spend years pretending he's okay because he doesn't trust the world with his truth. He may smile when he's hurting, stay quiet when he's overwhelmed, and provide without pause, all while carrying emotional weight that no one sees. So when he meets someone who sees through that mask and doesn't punish him for being vulnerable, his heart starts to lean in, slowly at first, carefully, but it leans in nonetheless. He becomes emotionally attached when he realizes he doesn't have to perform, when he doesn't have to earn love by being perfect, when his failures aren't weaponized, when his silence isn't misunderstood as distance but recognized as a signal that something deeper is happening inside. It's not about fixing him, it's about holding space for him to be honest without fear of losing respect. That doesn't mean letting go of standards or becoming his therapist. It means creating a connection that says, "I see you even when you don't have it all together." It means listening not just to respond, but to understand. And most importantly, it means making room for the fact that he may not have been given the tools to communicate the way he truly wants to, but with patience, he can learn. When a man feels safe emotionally, he begins to express more. He shares the things he normally hides, his childhood wounds, his fears about failing, his moments of shame, not because he wants pity, but because he finally believes that he won't be punished for being human. And in that belief, something beautiful begins to grow: trust. And once that trust is rooted, attachment follows. Not the kind built on dependency or fear, but the kind built on mutual understanding. He doesn't get attached to someone who makes him feel needed. He gets attached to someone who makes him feel seen. He gets attached when he realizes he doesn't have to be invincible to be loved. He gets attached when he feels emotionally free, not emotionally trapped. Because emotional freedom is everything to a man who's been emotionally guarded for most of his life. And when that freedom is met with grace, not control, when it's honored instead of manipulated, when it's nurtured instead of tested, he begins to let down his walls. Not all at once, not loudly, but quietly, deeply, permanently. That's when he stops looking around. That's when he settles in. That's when he starts building something real, not because he needs a place to hide, but because he's found a place where he can be fully himself. Respect isn't just a word to a man, it's an experience. It's how he measures connection, how he evaluates safety, and how he determines whether he can emotionally invest in someone. When a man feels truly respected, not for what he owns or what he can do, but for who he is, something opens up inside of him. A quiet space that most never get to witness, and it's in that space that emotional attachment begins to grow. You see, men are often celebrated for what they produce, their status, their success, their ability to lead or provide. The world claps when they're strong, stoic, and unshakable, but few stop to appreciate the person underneath the performance. A man attaches emotionally to a woman who respects his truth. Not the polished version he shows to the world, but the version that's been through disappointment, loss, rejection, and pressure. He attaches when she doesn't try to mold him into her ideal, but honors who he already is, flaws and all. He doesn't need someone to worship him. He's not looking for blind praise or ego strokes. What he wants is someone who recognizes the quiet effort he puts in, someone who notices when he's trying, even if he's not perfect. Respect also shows up in the way she honors his space, his pace, his emotional rhythm. Not every man moves quickly when it comes to feelings, and not every man knows how to articulate his needs. But when she respects his timing without pushing, rushing, or shaming, he feels safe to unfold. That space she gives him, it tells him he's not being pressured into performance. It tells him that love won't be taken away just because he's processing slowly. And that kind of patience earns something no manipulation ever could: loyalty. A man also attaches when he feels like his decisions are trusted, when he's not constantly second-guessed or dismissed, when his leadership isn't mocked or undermined but supported. That doesn't mean agreeing with everything he says. It means being able to challenge him without degrading him. Because true respect doesn't hide in silence. It shows up in how disagreements are handled, how tension is resolved, and how both people communicate their needs without attacking each other's character. And perhaps most importantly, a man becomes emotionally attached when the respect is mutual. When it's not just about her uplifting him, but both of them honoring each other's individuality. When she respects herself enough to have standards and respects him enough not to control or change him, that balance creates something sustainable, something real. Because when a man feels respected, he lets down the walls he's been taught to keep up. He shares more. He listens more. He feels more. Not because he's trying to keep someone, but because he knows he's finally in a space where he doesn't have to fight for basic human dignity. And that kind of space is where emotional attachment takes root and grows into something that can't easily be broken. Emotional attachment in a man doesn't just happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in chaos. It grows in consistency. A man needs to feel the stability, not just hear promises or sweet words. When love is hot one day and cold the next, when attention is a guessing game, and when emotional energy swings like a pendulum, he doesn't attach, he protects. Because inconsistency to a man is emotional danger, and it tells him, don't trust this. But when a woman shows up with steady presence, when her words match her actions and her energy stays grounded even in conflict, something shifts inside of him. He starts to relax. He starts to trust. Not just her, but the space they're building together. That trust is the soil where emotional connection takes root. And for a man, trust is everything. Not just trust that she won't cheat or lie, but trust that she won't use his heart against him when he finally lets his guard down. Men are wired to scan for patterns. He notices how you react under stress, how you speak when you're angry, how you disappear or stay present when things get hard. And every repeated behavior tells him something. So when a woman shows up consistently, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it creates safety. When she doesn't ghost him during conflict, when she doesn't switch up when he's vulnerable, when her energy doesn't depend on what she's getting from him, he begins to attach quietly, deeply. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. Men attach to the ones who feel emotionally reliable. The one who doesn't just say, I'm here, but shows it day after day, even in small ways. The check-ins, the way she listens without waiting to speak, the way she doesn't use silence as punishment or love as a bargaining chip. That kind of steady energy builds something far more powerful than drama ever could. Because inconsistency creates confusion, and confusion creates distance. A man doesn't attach to someone who leaves him emotionally guessing. He may be intrigued for a while, but his soul won't settle into anything uncertain. Consistency also means emotional regulation. Men are constantly measuring how safe they feel with a woman's emotional patterns. If he never knows what version of her he's going to get, he never lets his heart relax. That breath, that sigh of emotional relief, that's when he begins to feel something deeper. That's when he begins to let go of hypervigilance, that instinct to protect himself from being emotionally yanked back and forth. When a man no longer has to anticipate emotional whiplash, his nervous system calms, and in that calmness, connection grows. So if you want a man to attach, not out of fear, but out of fullness, give him something he can trust. Be steady, be rooted, be clear in how you show up, not just in moments of joy, but in moments of discomfort too. Because it's in those moments that real love is tested and proven. Men don't run from love, they run from instability. But when love is consistent, patient, and emotionally anchored, they stop running and they start staying. There's a powerful truth most people overlook about men. They become emotionally attached when they feel chosen for who they truly are, not just for what they can do or provide. Being chosen isn't about ego, it's about emotional clarity. A man wants to know that he's not a placeholder, a convenience, or a stepping stone. He doesn't want to feel like he's just filling a space someone else left behind, or that he's being loved for a role instead of his soul. When he feels that he's truly being chosen deliberately, intentionally, wholeheartedly, that's when he allows his heart to become involved on a deeper level. You see, most men walk through life being needed far more than being loved. They're needed for their support, their protection, their consistency, their strength. And while being needed can feel valuable, it doesn't create emotional intimacy. A man may meet many people who want something from him, but very few who want him. Just him. That distinction, though subtle, is everything. When a woman takes the time to understand his inner world, not just what he does, but why he does it, she separates herself from the crowd. When she asks about his childhood, his pain, the turning points in his life that shaped who he is, and listens without trying to fix him or make it about her, she becomes unforgettable. Because she's not just interacting with his surface, she's connecting with his core. Men are slow to trust this kind of attention because many haven't received it without conditions. But when he sees that your interest in him is not transactional, that you're not loving him only for the way he makes you feel, but for who he really is, even on his worst days, his heart starts to rest. His guard begins to lower. And that space of emotional rest, that's where attachment is born. To truly choose a man means embracing not only his strength, but also his imperfections. It means seeing the cracks in his armor and saying, "You don't have to hide that from me." It means reminding him, not with grand gestures, but with quiet consistency, that he is enough, not just when he's winning, not just when he's giving, but always. That level of love is rare, and when a man feels it, he doesn't forget it. He becomes emotionally attached to the woman who doesn't compare him, who doesn't try to shape him into an ideal version of someone else, who doesn't make him earn her softness by performing perfectly. He attaches to the one who stands beside him, not above him, the one who values who he is today, while gently believing in who he's still becoming. And when she chooses him, again and again, not out of need, but from fullness, that choice becomes a mirror. He starts to see himself through her eyes, and maybe, just maybe, he begins to love himself a little more because of it. That's the kind of bond that isn't easily broken. Because when a man feels truly chosen, he stops questioning his worth in the relationship. He stops guarding his emotions with silence. And in that safety and that unwavering space of being seen, valued, and accepted, he gives a part of himself that no one else has ever reached. Life for most men is loud, internally and externally. Expectations, responsibilities, silent pressures to always appear strong, to always provide, to always lead. The world rarely gives him permission to be soft or unsure. So when he enters a space where he doesn't have to explain himself, where he doesn't have to shrink or perform, something sacred begins to grow inside of him. Peace to a man is not the absence of noise, it's the presence of emotional safety. He doesn't get emotionally attached because you're the most attractive woman he's ever seen. He attaches because when he's with you, he feels like himself, the real self, the one who gets tired, who feels confused sometimes, who's made mistakes, who still carries past hurt. And instead of being judged or fixed, he's simply allowed to be. That experience is healing even if he doesn't have the language to say it out loud. Many women think that being a man's peace means being passive, agreeable, or always smiling. But that's not it. Being a man's peace means being emotionally steady. It means not turning every disagreement into a war. It means not making him feel like love has to be earned through conflict or tension. It means that even in moments of tension, your presence still feels like home, not like a battlefield. A peaceful woman isn't emotionless. She's emotionally in tune. She knows how to speak her truth without tearing him down. She knows how to express disappointment without disrespect. She can hold space for his frustration without making it about her. And that kind of emotional maturity is rare. But when a man finds it, he clings to it because it feels like shelter from the storm. Peace also looks like presence. When she listens without interrupting, when she doesn't jump to conclusions, when she's fully there, not distracted, not guarded, not suspicious, without cause, that grounded feminine presence allows him to settle into the relationship instead of always being on edge. He doesn't have to tiptoe around her emotions or guess whether today will be love or war, and that predictability, that emotional consistency is what gives him the freedom to go deeper. When a man finds peace in a relationship, it enhances every other area of his life. He becomes more focused, more confident, more generous, because he's no longer spending energy protecting himself. He's no longer caught in emotional defense mode. Instead, he begins to give, not out of obligation, but out of overflow. He gives emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because he's no longer running on survival. So if you're wondering why some men stay emotionally disconnected while others attach deeply, it often comes down to this: the ones who stay have found a safe space to land, and that safe space is peace. There's a moment in every man's heart when emotional attachment quietly blooms, not through words, not through romance alone, but through a deep sense of alignment. When a man sees that his values, goals, and emotional truths are reflected in the woman he's connecting with, something inside him locks in. It's not just chemistry anymore, it's clarity. He doesn't just feel pulled toward her, he feels safe in choosing her for the long term. And that sense of alignment is what turns interest into investment and attraction into emotional depth. Alignment shows up in small ways: shared priorities, a similar outlook on conflict, a mutual understanding of respect, honesty, and how love should be nurtured. It's not about being the same, it's about being in sync. And when a man starts to realize, she gets it, she gets me. A lot of men have been in relationships where they were loved for their potential, not their present. They were treated like projects to be fixed or leaders to be directed. But when a woman sees the man in front of her not as someone she can mold, but someone she can build with, she becomes different in his eyes. He sees her as a partner, not a critic, a mirror, not a mold. When a woman's values don't just align with his words, but with his life, how he makes decisions, how he defines loyalty, how he navigates failure, that alignment creates emotional bonding. He starts to feel that this is someone who understands the weight of his soul, the mission he's trying to carry out, the vision he's trying to live by. That level of spiritual and emotional compatibility creates trust that no surface level attraction can replace. Men also attach when they feel supported without being controlled. When a woman stands beside him, not in front of him trying to lead and not behind him trying to push, but beside him with equal strength and shared direction, he opens up. That shared sense of purpose, even when their paths are different, makes him feel like this relationship is a force that multiplies his life, not drains it. This is why emotional attachment isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up in how he opens up more, how he starts involving you in his decisions, how he slowly begins to build a life that includes you without you asking. That quiet shift from me to we is the result of values clicking into place. In the end, a man doesn't stay for beauty alone. He stays where he sees alignment of heart, of purpose, of peace. That's what keeps him emotionally rooted long after the surface excitement fades.